Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the HR and Policy Review Committee this evening. We'll start the agenda by asking apologies for absence, please.
Chair, I've got apologies from Councillors Brown, McRae and Needham.
Do we have any substitutions?
Yes, Councillor Simon Frost.
Item 3, declarations of interest. Do we have any declarations of interest? No? Fine. We'll now move to minutes of the previous meeting. To confirm and sign the minutes of the previous meeting of the HR and Policy Review Committee held on the 29th of March 2022 as a correct record. Do I have a proposer, please?
I wasn't at the meeting.
I think you ought to propose it.
Then I'd better propose it. I will propose it.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Tim. So it's proposed and seconded. Can we please now move to the vote?
In favour?
In favour?
Yeah.
Against? Any abstentions? One abstention. Thank you. Item 5, which is pages 5 to 16, is the Community Engagement Policy and Strategy, and I would like to introduce Sal, who is our new recruit, and she will take us through item 5.
Okay, well, we've got community engagement policy first. It's quite a resilient policy. It's quite embracing, and it's also a very active policy where we're aiming to take away all the jargon out of process, out of procedure, make the community aware of what we do, how we do it in a simplified way, and to encourage them at all opportunities to engage with us. And when we do that, we're going to have an outcome from that whereby it gives a pride back to Stapleford. We're going to be open, we're going to be honest, we're going to resource this fully and support people who want to bring their innovation, bring their ideas to the council, to take part, so that everything overlaps, so it has a fluidity to it. What we don't want to end up doing is to do them to the community, we want to do them with them, we want to develop it together so they have an active part, an active role in their future and the way that evolves. The way that we intend to do this in the strategy is by increasing all the different ways in which people can communicate with us and the way that we communicate with them. To give information out in ways that they can understand clearly. If they need help with any sort of format to understand something, that will be there to support that and to give them in those ways. That we develop a way that encourages people with ideas, just people who might never have even thought about having anything to do with the council before. They might not have had any idea of doing something publicly before, any idea about doing something in the community before. They might just be sitting there with an idea and thinking, wouldn't that be good? And we want to put across to them how they can bring that to us, how they can also be involved when we have decisions to be made, how they can input their information to that, their thoughts on that, and their feelings about that, especially when they're going to be people who are impacted on some of these decisions. But we need to take ownership of this policy, and we need to take ownership of our engagements, and we need to be able to evaluate ourselves on this so that we can see whether we are doing what we say on the tin. And what we've worked into the strategy is a method of evaluating our progress with it, evaluating how we grow and how we develop, and be prepared to adapt things as we go on and as we learn more about our community what they're wanting from us and what they want to be involved with and how they want to be involved with it and the formats. Is it to increase working groups? Is it to increase forums? Do they want to be able to get information in hard copy? Do they want to get information online? All different ways. We need to be accessible to all so it can be an inclusive way of going forward. What we will find at the end of this, we've got a timescale for different events that will be happening. The redesign and development of the website to make it more accessible, make it more user-friendly, so that things can be found very easily rather than wading through. But we want to have more schedules of things and what we're going to be doing well in advance so people can participate and they can get involved early enough. They don't want to hear these last minute of can we come along. So that there's a plan to this. We're going to market things properly and do it fully. We're going to do it at the right time scale and we're going to be continually evaluating things and working our way forward so that we have a growing relationship with the community, that we work together, that decisions and discussions are cooperative outcomes and that they're done together. And I do think it's a positive way forward. I think it's make it so simple and listen to what people are asking for and work with them on that. So I hand that back to the chair.
Right, now, I'm hoping that you've all read through this. I think it's a very good policy. It's long overdue. We need to have effective community engagement in the council and with the residents. So I'm going to put this out to the members now. And do we have any comments or questions? Simon?
I think the thing is, as you correctly pointed out, this has been well needed. We are the front-facing form of any local government. The parish council are the feet on the ground. And if we can't deal with it, we can push it up to the levels that can. Hence why when you've got councillors here that are here and also a borough, and we've got one that's also at the next level up as well, we can make sure the comments are directed. And also having this, whereas we're doing something and people can see what we're doing and come and offer advice that we may not have or we may not have thought of. For example, the scouts or the guides or whatever, if they've got ideas that they like to put on, or we put on something that they could have a table at. For example, an event for dog shows or whatever, and they might have an idea for shows, for tents, etc. And with that,
It's just something linked into something we've done in the past before your time. What stage are we at with the notice boards?
Yes,
Thank you, Chair. So they're on order and we're waiting for them to be finished being manufactured before we can actually install them. So as you will be aware with COVID and Brexit and all the other problems that have arisen recently, manufacturing of things is taking a lot longer than it used to do, which means that we are still waiting, having placed the order back in, I think, January, February time. So.
Have we got planning permission for them?
Yes, we have planning permission, and we just need the boards, and then we can get them installed. So, yeah.
So I was thinking, I mean, they probably belong on page 13 and 15 somewhere.
yeah.
13 and or 15.
Oh yeah, so we could put that in the action. I don't. The trouble is, I don't know when they're going to be here. So
Yes, that is a tricky thing. But they could go in depending
could we
on
pencil it in?
delivery.
Yeah.
yeah, so we can add those into the action. Yeah.
Councillor Tim?
Yeah, I like it as a framework. Very good. There are a couple of more specific points. On page 11, you got to the as a part of the introduction, it defines when community engagement is strong, the following things happen, and then there's a bullet point list afterwards. The third one down.
Oh, it's fell off the line.
The relationship between the council and residents is mutual instead of residents being passive recipients. I think that it would I know the way it's intended, but the way I initially read it is that it's an accusation that residents are currently passive and somehow being overlooked. And I think certainly given the amount, I know that that's not the intention. I think that the wording might express what we want better. With a little rethink of how that's put across. The relationship between council and residents is mutual. The council wants everybody to be active participants and that sort of thing. It's just a phrasing thing, but it's almost a subliminal.
It's the rather than.
Yeah. On page 12, it says clarify our role as a modern local authority. Now, local authority, whether with caps or without, often means generally the borough, but it can mean other levels of local government depending what you're talking about. I would say to avoid confusion, since that does have a ramification and definition as to which council, it might be better to just strike authority and write council. In that place, it saves confusion. There are a few formatting points that are easy to fix, but before we publish the documents, where I'd say, like for example, there's one on the bullet point list on page 11, 12, 13, where it's dropped to the next line because obviously things have been moved around. If we fix those and just aid readability, then and again our promises to the community on page 14, it is to all intents and purposes a bullet point list, but it took me a while to realise it, and I thought, oh, this is bad grammar, but then it's a list, so it's not bad grammar, I just didn't realise. So again, just aligning the standard layout to it so that people know. That's it. Very trivial points, but I think if we get it right now, we won't need to fix it later.
So I think what we need to do then is to, in order to make those amendments, we can, if you can.
You can recommend it to council.
I want to recommend those amendments to council. Yeah. So I agree with you on most of the things. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
It's just a matter of language, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's how we've worded it. It's not, and it could be misconstrued. So yeah. So you want me to carry this forward and take a vote on it?
Yes. Do you want to make a proposal?
So with the amendments, we take this forward to council.
Yep.
To full council.
Happy to second that. Or sorry, I beat you to it. But
We'll second it, and I proposed it, so we'll second that. And can we go to the vote, please?
All in favour?
So it's all in favour, it's unanimous.
Unanimous.
I think we've, I've just corrected me if I'm wrong, but I thought from page 10 that was but no,
that's part of this. So
it is part of it.
We're on page
We've
90.
got, it's an excellent policy to take forward. So, right, we've done item 5, so it's item 6. This is the training policy and strategy. So I'm going to hand this over to the town clerk for a few words, please.
Thank you. Chair.
Just before I do think it's very important for us as councillors to take this on board. I mean, obviously, it's everyone's free choice, but the council are training. We have a lot of people when they come to particularly parish councils have absolutely no idea, and there is no one there necessarily to guide them. So this training and development strategy, again, is something that I would like to recommend to you, but I'm sure Sabrina will explain in full.
Thank you, Chair. So we have a policy which I lost, which is on page 17, which is it's essentially a policy statement, which basically just sets out how we're committed to continuous training and development for councillors. It's important that councillors are supported in their role, as you said, particularly new councillors that have got no experience whatsoever of a council. It's a bit of a minefield when they come in. So we do need to make sure that we are offering the correct support and possibly mentoring opportunities from councillors that have been on for a long time, assuming that they've had training and that they know what they're doing. I think in some councils there are, particularly things like planning or HR, there are requirements that councillors go on training before they're allowed to actually sit on those committees and vote, just to make sure that they are properly trained before they start making decisions. And I think that's something that perhaps we might want to look at in the future. But for now, the training and development strategy, which starts on page 19, this is set out in accordance with the East Midlands Council Member Development Charter Award. So they have a guidance which was actually produced in partnership with the IDA, which is a government agency. And this has been something that's been in place since the early 2000s. And so I thought that was a good framework to follow for us to be able to meet the needs of councillors. So what we need to make sure we're doing is that we're tying the training that we offer to councillors back to our corporate strategy and our aims and ambitions for both the council and for the parish. We need to make sure that there's clearly defined roles and responsibilities, so that everybody knows what they're supposed to be doing and when and how they can help develop the council and achieve things for the parish as well. And we need to make sure that there's a clear induction programme for new councillors. So leading up to the new election, we will be putting something together, and we can do that in partnership with the NOTS ALC, of which we're a member. They do have online training modules. I think it's important that we do have face-to-face as well, because some people access learning better that way. And make sure that we sort of use every opportunity that we can to sort of partner with other parish councils, so we're not sort of bearing the whole cost ourselves necessarily. But it helps with networking as well, because I think it's important that we do actually work cross-border sometimes, and it helps. Sometimes they'll have better knowledge on something than we do, so it's important to share learning as much as we can. So I think making sure that we've got access to lots of different types of learning to meet everybody's needs. To ensure that we do meet people's needs, I would like us to start doing personal development plans for councillors. I appreciate it's something that's normally done for staff, but actually this is something that I've done before in authorities, and it's helped particularly new members sort of feel through how they want to work with the council, what committees they might want to sit on, and then what training actually they might need to help them make good decisions or understand the role better. And this is something that you can either do as an individual, or the group leaders could do it with their group members and then feed back the information depending on how they feel about it. I used to do it as an officer with a councillor. That was something that some councillors preferred, but I think it's important that we make sure that whoever's doing it, they feel comfortable with the method that they're choosing. So I think it's important to be sort of flexible in that. We might want to, at some point in the future, consider getting accreditation with the Member Development Charter. It's not a cheap and easy process, so it's not something I'd recommend at this point. But certainly it's important that we put things in place so that we actually have councillors attending training. We do have, at the moment, things in place, and people are going on courses or conference or that kind of thing. But we have an action plan at the back of this strategy as well, just to sort of set out the key points of how we're going to develop this piece of work effectively to make sure that we have an induction plan in place to start actually before the elections. There's a sort of an introductory candidate pack so people can come and learn about a parish council before they might decide they want to stand to be a parish councillor, and then obviously a proper induction programme for those that are successful at election.
Again, I recommend this policy. I think it's long, another one that is long overdue. I don't know how we can make it mandatory, but I would like it to be mandatory, really, for all councillors.
Can we decide that people, sorry.
So it's okay. I would like it, as I say, to be mandatory for all councillors to attend. I don't know how you feel about that, because I don't like being forced to do anything, but it's so important when we're doing this sort of work. The PDS, I think in the circumstances, and because we all belong to different political groups, then I don't think it should be a councillor to a councillor. I do think it would be better if it was an officer who could then be less discriminatory, if you like. There should be no discrimination anyway, but you know, if we have warring sites and things like that, then but that will come in time. Sorry, Ross.
You were saying about not seeing how we can make it compulsory. Clark said that she's worked in councils where you've only been able to join subcommittees by going through particular training. Is that one way of doing it?
Through the chair, yes, you could put that as a condition of being a member of a particular committee. You can't obviously prevent people from coming to council.
No.
They've got a right to be there, and you can't stop that. But for a particular committee, particularly for HR, I think it should be a requirement that you at least attend some training in relation to HR management of staff, and understanding the law behind it as well, particularly if you're making decisions on policy. Whilst obviously officers will bring the expertise, councillors have still got to think about it, they've got to question it, they've got to understand what it is they're actually making a decision on.
I think finance has got the same argument about it.
Yes, definitely, yeah.
Simon.
I agree. I think it's going to have to be a member of staff that goes through this with councillors. The simple reason then is completely neutral. Nobody's going to have a particular slant one way or another, or middle or whatever. It's just neutral. And I think that would be the best way to do it. There are some of us, myself included, that find it easier learning face to face than writing stuff down. Dyslexia, don't just love it. But it's just something that I think would be absolutely brilliant.
Do you have any comments, Tim?
I do. And I'm going to be the awkward one.
No, that's
as is my general. So
democracy, Tim.
yeah.
You're allowed to go so far.
Oh no, you know I'm always I'm always devil's advocate.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if I don't have anybody to argue with, I'll argue in the mirror.
Okay,
You know,
okay, you will know then.
Yeah. First one, just a point that I think needs probably correcting, if that's not too bold a term. On page 27, which is page 9 of the internal document, it says the HRPR committee is a cross-party body. That's a statement that's true only as a snapshot in time. After the next election, it's a statement that could turn into a one-party state, at which point that is a false statement. So I think to make this a time-lasting document, it's probably better to just remove that.
Sorry, which page are we on?
Page 27.
I'm on page 27.
Paragraph 2.
Yeah, I've got you.
Yeah. That is only true at this point in time.
If I can just be so bold, Chair, that is part of a stipulation of the Member Development Charter that you have a cross-party. Obviously, some councils are just entirely a single party, so that you can't possibly do that. But the intent is that all parties engage in this, whether they're opposition or not. So that's why it's in there. But obviously, yes, if it's not a possibility, then it doesn't. It's
I see.
Change
Okay,
at the time.
that's fine then.
Make sure everybody's engaged.
Yes.
So.
Yeah.
That's fine. So that's maybe part
Well,
of it. and answered your question. Is that okay?
Yes, I mean, I've got more to come back on, but I'll happily take a break and come back after Ross's.
Ross?
I say, perhaps you could put a cross-section of the parties represented on the council would be a way of putting that,
Yeah.
to make sure that we've got the intention of it and any unforeseen circumstances, well, currently unforeseen.
Yeah.
Say it again, cross section.
A representation, was it? Represents the cross-section of political and independent members on the council, something like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, this is all good stuff, because we're making this absolutely acceptable to everyone, I think, by doing this. So, Tim, any more?
Just so I'm going to not with the document itself actually.
No.
Everything about the document, apart from trivial stuff that I may have missed one or two, but that can be sorted out in due course. As a framework, as a policy, I agree with it. The conversation that's been had in this room, I'm going to be the one that says I disagree. I don't agree with making anything mandatory unless there's a legal requisite to do so. That's my foot firmly stamped into the capital L liberal category. If it doesn't need to be mandatory, don't make it mandatory. We're not a nanny state. And the reason that Broxtowe does have mandatory training, as an example, for some committees and not others, is because those are quasi-judicial committees that actually are acting as a legal body making decisions. Those are the only ones that have mandatory training associated, and therefore I support it. So I don't agree. I know that other opinions are available, but that's not what's on the table today anyway. We're just spitballing, aren't we? So
if I can come back, Tim. I said I would like mandatory.
Yes.
I know that we're not going to necessarily get I'm not going to get my own way on that. Everybody. So I take it on board. I understand you are liberal.
How did she make that sound like an insult?
I do take that on board, and yes, you're right. But we do also, as you rightly pointed out at Borough, it is mandatory on some judicial, committees, and you do have to sort of, and the same thing would apply, I'm sure, to a town council if we were to deal in the same way as the Borough. And if we, as time goes on, I do believe things have come to light lately in my little realm of politics that suggests that the town councils are going to have much stronger powers in all areas. So we won't take it off the table completely.
No, and there's nothing.
But obviously, I respect what you have said, and I knew you would.
We've known each other for long enough. Overall though, again, I'm only arguing that as a counterpoint to the points that have been raised in the room. The document itself, I fully support. In its current form, I can see it as meaningful, and happy to second it when you propose it.
And you agree that we are moving forward, I think, with these policies, and they are long overdue. Not for all sorts of reasons, but so I think this young man was first.
It's been a while since I've been called young.
This chap.
That'll do.
Let's get it politically correct.
Turned into a chat.
Politically correct.
That's right. I think when you're a new councillor and you're looking down the you've got me at it now, the barrel of, say for example, planning, and you've got all those documents in front of you, you look at them going, what on earth's this? Information or training that helps you understand what they are. Even if it's just, you can take it on if you wish to. would be very, very useful. The same within finance. I mean, again, that would be very useful. And I think at the moment, if we put them in as something that is optional for people to take if they wish to, I think it would be quite useful. You'd be surprised how many people would want to take them on, to basically find out what the planning application form is or what the finance is, because not everybody knows when they come onto the council.
My belief is that we should have mentors anyway for all new councillors. I know what it was like for me when I became a borough councillor, and even though I had fellow councillors, they weren't forthcoming. You are hung out to dry, basically. You have to sink or swim. And I suppose in some ways it's good because it focuses your attention on the issues. But it can sometimes affect people, you know, it can be quite soul-destroying as well. And so anything that makes us better councillors has to be a good thing. And, you know, that's why I'll be recommending to take this to full council, but not before Ross has said his piece.
A couple of things. One is response to what Tim was saying about if there's a legal reason. We are legally responsible for setting up a budget.
Yes.
And if we set it wrong, it lends to big trouble. So although it's not, I don't think at a town council it's a judicial committee. I think we could, if we let people come on and they just did what they thought was a good idea, we could end up being in a lot of trouble as a council, legally, if we didn't set a proper budget. And then HR, if we're managing staff, there are also legal requirements there. The clerk said there, we need to be, if we're on this committee, or certainly some people on this committee need to be aware of what legal responsibilities are. So I say that is a case where it's almost a good thing for saying it's to come on these two committees. It needs to be.
I think, if I can come back there, I think this, you're quite right. If you are going on specific committees, then there is good reason why you need to know what you're doing completely. And I think that wasn't the point that was being made by Tim, if I'm right. So we obviously.
I wasn't arguing with him. I was just sort of adding to what he said.
Oh, I see.
I think that there are two committees which do meet what I think Tim was saying,
So
where training does need to be compulsory,
So
even on a lowly town council.
Yeah, coming back, it's not. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that training wouldn't be valid, and I'm not saying that the consequences of getting any decision that you make wrong on a council doesn't have consequences. I'm saying that I would personally, a lot of people that I know would take umbrage at something that isn't an absolute legal requirement, which, for example, training to sit on the planning committee at Broxtowe is an absolute legal requirement. You'll be kicked out of the room if you haven't had it. That we ought not to be superimposing based on our own judgment things that are not the judgment of the law of the land. I think that that's a bit of a stretch, and that's all. In terms of, can I pick up on something that you said that I agree with completely? With a bit of an example, mentorship.
yes.
I remember talking, and I'm sure that you and maybe Si knows my Lib Dem colleague Josie Masters,
Yes.
and because our group at Broxtowe was diminished from 2015 until 2019. Josie was sitting a lot as a fresh councillor. She was one of the few people that didn't get wiped out in 2015 that wore a yellow rosette, but actually got elected on. And she was sitting, because of the reduced numbers, she was sitting on committees on her own, and said to me one time that she was so put out by that because she didn't have any support, any friends. I've been lucky since I became a councillor that I've always sat. We've got enough numbers now that there are always at least two of us in the room, and I had personally, but as an accident almost, I had strong mentors, the likes of Stan Heptonstall and Jackie Williams, that were very seasoned, who before I became a councillor had taught me a lot about it. But that shouldn't be. That's an accident. That's because of the people I know. We need to make sure that people that don't have those fortunate circumstances have the same level of support, and it's provided as a part of the establishment. So, yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So, right, moving forward then.
No,
Almost got away with it.
yeah, it is. Page 17, where it talks about having less favourable treatment on various grounds. The last one is party political affiliation. The four councillors here all belong to political parties. There are quite a few
I
councillors.
can't,
Sorry.
I have to take it off. I'm
Yeah. Yes. I also have leukemia though, so I'm still being very wary of it.
I know you're keeping us safe, but I can't hear you.
Yeah. So page 17,
Yeah.
one of the things where you shouldn't receive less favourable treatment, party political affiliation. And we four all belong to political parties, but there are quite a few councillors on Stapleford Town Council who aren't. And I just trying to think whether they would see that as something that was ignoring them.
I think it's more about the fact that if you are part of, so if you're part of the minority party on this council, you shouldn't expect to get less favourable treatment from the ruling party, if you like, in terms of access to training and
Yeah.
things. So,
Well, equally, if you're not a member of a political party and you're one of the few, they shouldn't.
yeah, but it still encompasses them, because although they're independent, that's still a level of.
But some people, when they see
Independents
politics,
would claim otherwise.
well, yes, they would, and some people misunderstand the word political. It has very many meanings, but some people see it entirely as party political. So page 26, where it's definitely not, doesn't refer to party politics. In the end of the first bullet point, in a modernised political structure, that is definitely not party politics. But again, that might be misunderstood, and there's another way of putting those that would accomplish the same.
What would you like to suggest?
I don't know. I'm
Check,
presenting the problem, not the solution. I know.
Sorry for the interruption. I can't find the bit in question.
Page 17,
Yes.
end of the second last paragraph.
Oh, right. Oh, yeah, okay, thank you. Couldn't see it for looking. Well, yeah, just remove there and write any.
Oh, does it?
Oh,
Does
yeah.
that change it?
Yeah, I've got it.
It doesn't make any difference, so does it? It's about the use of party political affiliation when some people are
Or-
independent. Or should we put or otherwise on the end?
Otherwise does cover it.
Well, I think any. The reason I suggested any is because any could mean none. It's any is if you have one. It's almost an incidental, isn't it? So
Oh, yeah, so we mean,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Party political or other affiliation? No, that doesn't.
Hmm.
No, I think that's not.
Actually, you could do that, because then if they're part of a campaign group of some kind, then
Yeah,
it's not, it is still political, isn't it? But it's not a party.
because there has been groups like that have taken over councils.
okay, I've got a
So
fix.
by-
I've got a fix, but it's made it a bit more clunky.
It's made it a bit more like.
Clunky.
So we changed there to any.
Change there to any.
Yeah.
Party political affiliation or lack thereof.
Yeah, okay.
That covers it.
It's a bit clunky because I don't like it. It almost sounds lawyerish, doesn't it? And we're trying not to go for that kind of language, but it does clarify.
I think
It's
everybody would
okay.
I
understand.
think I agree with you. Yeah, it's not the ideal, but it's.
Yeah.
Just let's make this watertight, shall we?
Just to draw your attention, Chair, if I may, on the final paragraph of that policy statement, I've said that all councillors are encouraged to take part in a minimum of 5 learning activities annually, to give it's encouraged, so it's not a mandatory that you must, but just to sort of give it a target for people to understand that maybe they need to step up if they've not done anything about it. You might want to suggest a different number. I don't know. I picked 5 because that seemed reasonable.
Right. Okay. Thank you very much. Good. It's all been good. And so I would like to take this forward.
You want the question
So
first?
I'm going to recommend that we take this forward with the amendments
I propose.
to full council. I was just about to propose it, but if you'd like to, you
I propose. Unlike
Very well.
you, so.
So who's going to second it?
Would you like to second it so you can get to propose it?
There you go.
No, I'll let you second it, Tim.
Happy to.
Sorted.
So that's carried.
Or it's not voted on yet.
No, we've
We've got to
proposed
vote
and
yet.
seconded, we haven't voted yet.
Oh, sorry. Well, we have noted that.
Can we see all in favour?
Yeah, we need to be
Yeah.
all in favour.
I'm going to.
Okay.
I'm the only one that you don't know.
Okay, so can we take it to the vote then? It's been recommended, it's been noted, it's been recommended. Can we now move to the vote, please? So all in favour? Thank you very much, I knew that. None against, and we have no abstention, so thank you, it's so nice. You see, politicians can work together, can't they? Yeah, it happens now. So now we come to, we've done customer service policy. On item 7 now, or on customer service policy? I've lost my way.
Item 7, customer service policy.
Yes, customer service policy, item 7, very important indeed. There we are. So, Sabrina, would you like to take us through this? I mean, it is, as somebody that has been, was in business for many years in management, this is very close to my heart because customer service is absolutely everything. Without them, we wouldn't be here, we wouldn't be able to do anything at all. And it's only right that we should use this sort of policy and take from it sort of behaviour that is expected from us. Right, so we'll, Sabrina, how would, do you want to move forward with this?
Thanks, Chair. So thanks to Sally for drafting this.
Yes, it's brilliant.
First of all. So this is it's a fairly sort of standard policy, but as you say, it's important that we do have this so that the customers, residents and whoever we deal with can know what to expect from staff. So the first section of the policy is our guiding principles, our commitment to customers and how we will treat them when they interact with us. We'll make arrangements to have things done in sort of different languages and that kind of thing if we need to. There are costs to that sometimes, but we need to sort of look at that in because there are a lot of people from different countries that live in Stapleford actually, and there's a lot that we sort of deal with through the allotments. So that's important that we do get that right. Obviously we've got many different channels that people interact with us on. We are wanting to try and increase those, but obviously that's subject to staffing capability in terms of capacity to do that. So we will try our best to make sure that we adhere to these. It's important that we monitor it as well so that we can measure how well we're doing. And so that comes to the first part. The second part is guidance for the workforce. So this is our training package basically to get our staff on board and so they know how they're supposed to be handling people that we interact with. I think for the most part we do quite well. We've not had any complaints of any kind that we're aware of that sort of is relating to us interacting with somebody seeking a service. But you know, there's always room for improvement, so we try our best to do things slightly differently. Also, part 3 of this is our promise to customers. So this is basically this is the poster that we have on the wall to say this is how you can expect us to deal with you, and our commitment to customers that come to interact with us. There is something that's been pointed out to me that needs altering, which is the answering the telephone call.
Yeah, just underline that.
Yes, so whilst we internally we will try to answer them as quickly as possible, we don't ever leave the phone ringing unless we're out of the actual office itself. We will change that to 2 minutes to match the front part of the document. It was just not added in correctly. So that's the only change that you need to know, as far as I'm aware, until you open it up to the floor. So back to you, Chair.
Again, just a sort of trivial formatty thing. Top of page, I don't know if this is the only example, but top of page 36, we will acknowledge correspondence, e.g. emails, blah, blah, within 3 days, Monday to Friday in brackets. There's elsewhere, like further down the page after the subheading letter, where it talks about working days, and there are numerous examples where it talks in the document about working days. Should we just apply working days consistently across the entire document?
Yes.
Because obviously the top one that I pointed out and that says Monday to Friday, well, that doesn't acknowledge bank holidays, Christmas, anything like that. So if you're actually giving yourself a stiffer target at certain times of year, whereas the working days kind of covers it all off. The only other one that I would ask, and it's just popped into my head, all but two of our sitting councillors at the moment are simultaneously customers, i.e. precept payers in Stapleford. So I won't make a party political point too much, Jan. Okay, I'll make a party political point, Jan, not you. I'm going, well, if we bring this policy in, it could reasonably argue that if a councillor phones up the office and doesn't get an answer within, that might be harder to achieve, because when you see goodness me, if you saw my number pop up on your phone, Sabrina, you know that you need to write off half an hour straight away. You might not want to answer it at that point in time. So I'm just saying we need to be mindful of this, because actually it could be if a councillor got perturbed that they weren't answered within a certain period of time in this document, then they would actually be contra policy.
They would be entitled to make a complaint then, because we have a complaints policy. So
and do we want the staff handling more complaints? It's, I'm just saying it's something that's popped into my head. Could be a problem, could not be a problem. I'll raise it.
Thank you for that.
Just to come back with Tim, as councillors, we've got access to our little email unit that we can email straight over to Sabrina. She always answers quite soon and quickly, whenever possible, or with the salary or everything else. And I think we've got that where other people haven't, and I think we understand that. As a councillor, if you're literally dealing with people other than me, I understand that, that's fine. People take as an hour, I'll rephrase that, I'm losing the plot. Our constituents have more of a right to get to you first than we do. We can always go via email. And I know that you'll always phone back if you're busy at the time or not in the office, etc. You always have phone back. So I think that you've written out there covers it fairly well, because as I say, we've got the access to the emails. We've got more than one way of getting through.
Well, the customer comes first anyway.
Yeah.
Always. So we are just right.
Jack.
Sorry, hello.
Ross.
Right, that's who it is.
Can't get this off now.
No.
Right.
Okay.
On the customer service standards, our commitment to you, presumably what is going up on the wall, answer your telephone call within 2 minutes. When you say during working hours, because if somebody decides to ring at midnight, it's just, yeah. And are we going to make it known? Well, no, not are we? We presumably will make it known to the company that installs the phone system that we want it to ring for 2 minutes, not cut off before that.
Yeah, it'll be a VoIP system, so we can do all sorts of fancy
Oh,
things.
so
with
we
that,
can do that ourselves, yeah.
Not at the moment, but when we get it in.
Yeah,
So
well, yeah. That's just something that occurred to me, that Because some things, I mean, somebody tries to phone me, it goes to voicemail very quickly on my mobile. I found no way of changing it.
That is a really good point. Can I just make me have an additional thought?
Oh, no.
Sorry.
Don't let him have
What defines an answer? Because it'd be an easy way of saying 100% compliant if the call is answered, i.e. it's dealt with by a robot. Some companies do that, and they'll be fudging their statistics accordingly. If it goes through to a say yes if you want to go round and round and round in circles. Say no if you want to go round and round in circles through a different path. You know, that could constitute an answer. So should we stipulate by a person, by a member of
I
staff?
think we should, because
Yeah.
I hate,
But we were
it's
gonna-
like, I go mad, and then they cut you off at the end, don't they?
Yeah.
Before, you just about think, yes, on Thursday.
Correct.
They're going to answer me, and then,
That's only you that happens to, Jan. They recognise your number.
No, mine does go backwards in the queue as well.
But then we're shackling future staff and future administrations to make sure that they don't try and circumvent the good intentions of this policy. Yeah.
One of the things about using the VoIP thing though was that we could do that, wasn't it? That was one of the things that came up last Friday.
So some of that would be redirecting it to the correct phone. So at the moment we have one extension, and so
Yeah.
we all pick it up and we don't know who it's for. But actually, if we could get it to ring to Keeley for the allotments queries,
Yeah.
or to me if
Okay,
the councillor
yeah.
wants something, you know, it'd be easier to sort of put the queues in there. But also we can put messages on there to try and redirect traffic for us, because we get a lot of calls about council tax and benefits and housing and all the stuff for the borough. So if we can actually put that message up front to say, actually, if your inquiry is about this, please hang up and dial, and so redirect things. So hopefully it will manage calls better.
Cool.
right. So, we have considered the draft customer service policy. I would like to recommend that we take that for council. Can I have a proposer?
Propose it with the amendments that we've already discussed.
Yes.
Yes, I'm happy to propose that.
And a seconder? We have a seconder. Can we please move to the vote?
All in
All
favour?
in favour?
All in
That was agreed unanimously. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Like all of them so
It's all
far.
right.
But eventually.
Very difficult day dealing with children. Now, item 8, quite seriously, we're moving now to confidential session. So we have to consider the following items in a confidential session and resolve stating the reasons for exclusion in the following terms. Under the Public Bodies Admission to Meetings Act 1960, the public and representatives.
Are you moving that?
Yes, I'm moving that, so I would move that to the vote, please. I want
I'll
a
second it.
proposer and a seconder. I'll propose it and second it. Can we please move to the vote? Yes, everybody's got their hand up.
What am I voting for or
Are you in
against?
favour
Right,
to
this
move
is
to
right.
confidential?
Just weren't paying attention. And I wrote it out so beautifully.
We'll do
I'm
that.
voting in favour.
So can we just,
Unanimous, I think that is.
Again.
It was, Chair, just now, whilst I just...
Excuse me for 30 seconds.